Good morning, Year 4. It is me again with your maths today. Hope that you're all okay and ready for another day in our final week of home learning before half term. So we are going to continue with the learning about shapes. We're looking at something slightly different now. So all of that work that we've done on shapes has been tricky, and I found it tricky too because there are lots of words. We've got that glossary now, so that's something that you can use and you can keep referring back to. And just I want to say a big well done, because shapes, and especially learning about shapes at home, is really difficult. So well done for your perseverance and your resilience. Okay, and we're going to now move on to a slightly different area of shapes. Okay. Before we start then, I just want to ask you a few questions to get you thinking about maps. So it links a little bit to being a geographer, because we are going to be looking at maps. Okay, so I want you to think, have you ever used a map before? Have a little think. When have you used a map before? So I know I've used maps before when I am lost, to find directions to somewhere, to know where to go, and to know what's around me. So I suppose it's good for our spatial awareness. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you these questions here, and I would like you to write down what is to the left of you. Although that might look backwards on the screen, I can't tell. To the left of me in real life is a whiteboard. What's to the left of you? To the right of me is the desk at school, my desk when we're in school. What is to the right of you? Now, these next ones are a little bit more subjective. What is near to you? So what is near to me is my cup of tea. My cup of tea is near to me. I could also say that this whiteboard pen is near to me. One of them is slightly more near and closer, but they are both near, as we say near. What is near to you? Can you come up with a couple of things that are near to you? What is far from you? So what is far from me is our collection of curriculum enhancing books, our art books and our science books. They are all far from me. Also, the door is far from me. It's not as far as the books, they are further, but it is still far from me. It's not really near to me. Okay, so they are quite subjective. And then finally, now we've done what is near and far to you, what's in the centre of the room that you are in? So in the centre of the room that I am in is the middle table of the classroom when it's all set out. So the table and chairs for the middle are there. So that's in the centre of the room I'm in. What's in the centre of the room that you're in? Okay, so that little starter was setting us up for our learning that we're going to do based on position and movement and things. So it will be a lot to do with maps. So you're going to be a mathematician as well as a geographer at the same time. And using those words and thinking about those words is helping us start to understand what might be near to each other on a map, what might be far from each other, what might be in the centre of the map. And it's just getting us think about directions a little bit before we apply it to maths. So our discover today is, first of all, before we start the discover, I don't want to ask you the questions yet. I want you to tell me, in fact, shall I make it big screen? Let's treat ourselves to the large screen. So what can you see on the map, first of all? Your turn. Okay, my turn. I can see a gift shop, and I know I'm answering the second question here, sorry guys, as well. Which places are close to each other? Well, the gift shop is right by the entrance. Clever placement for that theme park, having a gift shop right by the entrance. And there's a first aid post right at the other side of the park, so they are far. But the first aid post is near the drop zone ride and the playground in case anybody hurts themselves on the slide or anything. So now your turn. What can you see that's close to each other on there? Okay, and final question, how many playgrounds are there? I can see 2, so that might have an impact on the questions that we are asked. Okay, so now we've looked at that picture and we have worked out and got familiar with it, we can answer some questions on it. So this girl, I don't know her name, Bella, says, I am looking for the place that is next to the log flume and close to a playground. Now we know that there are 2. So we need to use the information that we have here. So it's close to a playground, but that could be either playground. What else can we use to help us work out where she's looking at? So it's close to a playground, yes, but how do we know which playground? So she's looking for a playground that's near the log flume. Okay, now both playgrounds are not too far from the log flume, but this one on the left-hand side of the map is definitely closer to the log flume. So if she's looking for the place that is next to the log flume, so next to the log flume and close to a playground, what could she be looking at? I think she's looking at the drop zone ride. Convince me. Can you write in your maths book to convince me? Do you think I am right that next to the log flume and close to a playground must be the drop zone ride? Convince me. Am I right? Sorry. Okay, so I've heard some of you telling me that I'm not right, and you are correct. I am not right because actually, is the drop zone ride next to the log flume? Not really. The word next to means really close to. It means the very next thing, not something further away. So what is exactly next to the log flume then? Could be the lake, but is the lake close to the playground? No. So we need to combine those 2 things, close to the playground and next to the log flume. So log flume is here, playground is here. The roller coaster is next to the log flume, tick. Is it close to the playground as well? Tick. So it might be the roller coaster. I think it's the roller coaster. So we've done question 1A there. We know which place Bella is looking for, and you've convinced me how you can tell which place it is because you told me I was wrong about the drop zone ride. So well done. Now, describe the position of that same place, of that roller coaster, but in a different way. How can you describe it differently? Have a look at the roller coaster. So not using the log flume in the playground, what else could we say? I might choose to say next to the lake, or I might say between the playground and the lake. But between the playground and the lake would give you one option. Here, it could be the roller coaster, but between the playground and the lake could also be what else? What else is between the other playground and the lake? So I could say between the playground and the lake and near the drop zone ride. That way, it definitely is the roller coaster and not the picnic spot. You have a go for me at writing, describing the position of the roller coaster in a different way. Okay, so the next question, sorry, not the next question, just going through it. So Dexter says that we need to use both pieces of information, and I did put the question here, why do we need both pieces of information? But we've kind of answered it. So because we've kind of already answered it, do you think you can say it again but better? Whatever you said in the first slide, can you say it again but better and explain why Dexter needs to use both pieces of information? The log flume and the playground. He needs to use both pieces of information because there are 2 playgrounds. So we need to be specific to make sure he knows which playground we are talking about. Okay, and so the position of the roller coaster, we've got Astrid and Flo, and they are both saying, describing where the roller coaster is. So one of them saying, I don't know which is which. The green one is saying, I will say that the roller coaster is between the playground and the lake, like I said. And then the other one with the orange speech bubble is saying, I wonder if it's exactly halfway. So whose description would be more specific? Whose description, evaluate it for me, whose description would be better? So, like we talked about on the last slide, the girl with the green speech bubble is saying between the playground and the lake, but we've already found an issue with that. There are 2 playgrounds and both of them have something between them and the lake. So it's not specific enough because there are 2 options. Now, I think the other one's Flo. Flo is a little bit more specific because she says, I wonder if it is exactly halfway. Now, if we said, instead of between the playground and the lake, if we said halfway, then that would make it even more specific. And actually, Flo's, at the very bottom, we can see that the description is taking out the confusion about the two playgrounds by not using the playground, using something else instead. We're talking about it being halfway between the log flume and the drop zone ride. That way, there's no confusion. They are only one drop zone, only one log flume, and the roller coaster is exactly halfway between them. So there is no confusion because it can't be. We might have thought the playground, but that's not exactly halfway. Might have been the lake, that's not exactly halfway. So we have removed any tricky spots or any of the things that could be the same. So thinking together then, before we start, I want us to have a think about these questions. Well, these questions are there to help us, with answering these. So let's have a little look. Identify each of these places from its description. So what is the place near the top of the map? So we can already get rid of things that are towards the bottom. I'm thinking I might get rid of things below the lake because that's halfway. And if we are talking about the top of the map, then I would say halfway and up. So I would probably get rid of things below the lake. So near the top of the map, close to the coach park. Near the top of the map, close to the coach park. Is that the toilets or is it the cafe? Can you explain it for me? Why is it the toilets or the cafe? Okay, so hopefully for 1A, you could tell me that it was the toilets because the toilets are closer to the top of the map. Okay, so yes, it could have been the cafe because it's near the coach park, close to the coach park, but it does say near the top of the map and the toilets is that little bit closer to the top. So I would say the toilets. What is the feature in the center of the map? That one is, I think, a little bit easier because it's just one instruction. What's in the center? It is the lake. What is closest to the entrance? Now the word playground at the bottom there is close to the entrance, but that's not where the playground is. The playground is where that red dot is. So having a look at the red dot of the playground, it is not the closest. What is the closest red dot to the entrance? It is the gift shop. Like I said, clever placement, Wonderworld. You know to put the gift shop near the entrance and exit so that people have to buy things on the way in and on the way out. Clever. So the fourth one for question 1, where's the closest place to the lake? Remember, it's not about the writing, it's about the dots. I think it is, get your answer first. I think it's the roller coaster. Now, for the next one, we are going to, instead of finding the places, we are going to describe them. We're swapping roles. So we are going to describe the positions of these places. And there might be a couple of ways to answer the question. So you could have a couple of different right answers. So the ice cream shop. So to help you describe it, what's the closest to the ice cream shop? What's really close to the ice cream shop? That will help us describe. Oh, it's very tricky. I would say maybe the picnic spot. But also the log flume. So if we combined it, I know, because if we said it's near to the picnic spot and the log flume, it might be the lake. We could say, here we are bringing in some words of description that we haven't used yet in this part of the lesson. We could say, to the left of the playground. And we don't have to give any more information because the playground up here doesn't have anything to the left of it. The playground down here does. So we could say to the left of the playground near the log flume, and that would describe the ice cream shop. Or we could say completely over the opposite side of the park to the coach park, we could say directly opposite and the furthest point away from the coach park is where the ice cream shop is. B then, the cafe. Now be careful because as with the first one, our description might only apply to the cafe, but it might also accidentally describe two places. So have a look at the cafe. What can we use to describe it? So we could say near the coach park, but that could also be the toilets. And you definitely don't want to go to the toilet when you want in the cafe. What do we think we could say then? I think we could say between the gift shop and the coach park. I think that's what I would say. The drop zone ride then. We could say, what could we say for that one? You have a think and I'll have a think. So we had a little go. Oh, I was looking at the roller coaster, sorry. So we could say between the playground and the toilets, because that creates quite a nice straight line. We could say, to make it even more specific, we could say between the playground and the toilets and near the first aid post. That way there is no choosing anywhere else. That is definitely the drop zone ride. And then finally, the first aid post. What would we say for that one? How could we describe that one? We might say near the toilets and the drop zone ride. Because near the toilets is the coach park or the first aid, but the drop zone ride as well is only the first aid. It's not near the coach park anymore. So we could say near the toilets and the drop zone ride, or yeah, near the toilet and the drop zone ride is the first aid post. As long as you've described it and you've been specific, you will have got an answer that is correct there. So as long as you've been specific and made sure that you can't accidentally describe something else, you will have covered that answer. Okay, so first of all, how many squares are there across the map? Well, actually, very first question, what's different about this map? It's got all the same places on, but what's different? It's got squares on. So how many squares are there across the map? So across, meaning going left to right. How many across? There are 8. So there are 8 squares across. How many squares up or down the map? We've got 8 across and 6 down. Okay, so how do you think it would help? We have, because for question 1 at 3A, it's asking us to find somewhere halfway between something. How will the squares help us find halfway? Because we were doing it before. How will the squares help us find halfway? So the squares will help us find halfway because we can be exact. If the log flume's in one, and then there are 2 squares, and then there's something else, then we know that halfway is exactly in between those 2 squares. It can help us be really specific so that we can give incredible directions. So use this map to describe or to find, each of these places. So this place is halfway between the roller coaster and the ice cream shop. So find the roller coaster and then find the ice cream shop. What is halfway between those? So that is 1, 2, 3 squares. So what's in that middle square? The log flume. Well done. This place is 2 spaces to the right of the first aid post. So find the first aid, move 2 spaces to the right, 1, 2. What's there? The toilets. Well done. C is 7 spaces across from the left edge of the map. So let's have a look at the left edge. Let's count 7 spaces across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's in this column here somewhere. And it says 3 spaces up from the bottom. So we've gone 7 across, and now we need to go 3 up in this column. 1, 2, 3. What is that then? The gift shop. So we're going to start looking at using maps to help us find places and describe them, but also maybe squares. And why do you think the squares make things easier? You can be more specific. Okay, so this is what we are going to be doing in our independent work. I'm going to click through them and just talk through any potentially tricky questions. So for number one, all we're doing is what we did in the Think Together and the Discover. You are just going to identify the place that you have got. So for example, 1A, you need to find somewhere that's next to the moor. So next to the moor means pretty close, and also close to the camp. So what is right next to the moor? That could be any of those things around the moor. But out of those, which is close to the camp? Okay, and you're doing that with all four, so make sure that you're including or using all the information that you are given, because you're being given this information, so make the most of it. Okay, and then question 2, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to describe where the camp is. Okay, so where is the camp? I think I might say things like in between, next to the left of, to the right of, in the center maybe, near the top, near the bottom. So you've got lots of different ways, lots of different language that we've used all this lesson, including the starter, lots of different language that you can use to help you answer those questions. If you don't have a copy of this, you can use the video, pause and write down your answers in your book, okay? So you can keep flicking between the two so that you can see. And then number 3, imagine, ow, bumped the table. Imagine drawing a straight line from the cave to the cliff. So you can either draw a line if you've got a printout, or you can put up a pencil or a ruler across your screen so that you can see what that line would look like. So what is going to be, what was it between, sorry, the cave and the cliff? So here's the cliff, here's the cave. What is through the middle of the cliff? Okay, which other places would the line go through? Now it says places, so maybe there are more than one. Number 4, Andy, you need to convince me, put your convince me glasses on. Is this correct? Andy says the woods are exactly halfway between the cave and the moor. So the cave and the moor, are the woods exactly halfway? If we had squares, we would know for sure, but convince me, is Andy correct? And then for your final page of work, you've got another one, like with the challenge for the Think Together, you've got a grid. So use this map to describe where some places are, and then ask somebody in your house to see if they can find where you are describing, okay? And then just explain for me whether you think this map with the squares is easier or harder. And then finally, in the reflect, in your own words to show your own learning, just describe for me and explain how maps and grids can help us find where things are. Okay, and that is it for today's lesson. That's your independent work, so go and have a go at that for me. And then send us in your work so we can have a little look. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you very soon.